the intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Specialty ships! We had 5 of these bad boys come out in 2023, and this video we're going to try two different things. Number 1, tell you whether or not, as of the making of this video, any of these specialty ships, which you can see the 5 listed right here, are worth building and investing time into. And 2, we're going to kind of regrade them, a retrospective look, if you will. And this was brought up by a conversation with Game Design. We were talking about how at the end of the month, for those that don't know, if you're maybe new to the channel or new to Star Trek Fleet Command as a whole, we do a video following the month where we run a survey to say, how did each thing grade? Were the officers good? Were the features good? Was communication communicating? Usually not. Sometimes it does though, which is nice. Was it stable? Whoa, no, it wasn't. Was I lame? Always, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is talk about whether these have value based on what I think. We're going to take a look at these grades, which you can see here. The Talios was the most highly graded ship of the 2023 special ships. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now, absolutely you need to get it. But we're going to regrade it because we've actually recreated another survey. Now the link to this will be in the description of this video. You don't necessarily have to go through and go in crazy answers. This is literally A, B, C, D, and what level are you? It's super simple, 1 page. You don't have to type anything. You're just simply going to grade the ship as it is, and we'll use that grade to determine whether you think it has value in today's game, and then I'll give you my thoughts as we go through every single one of them. So, sounds simple? Well, good, because simple sometimes is better. So again, here's how things graded out, and going by this, the Talios was the best, followed by the Voyager, then followed by the Borg Cube, then the Monaveen, and then the Titan. So, is that accurate? Is that how it should be? Technically, I'm sorry, the Titan would be above the Monaveen. The Monaveen is the worst because it was D-. Is that how it should be? Well, let me go ahead and go through each one individually. The Talios you get at level 35, completely free to play. If you have a maxed Vidar and you hit level 35, you have a mission in the holodeck, allow you to unlock it. Now, I will say that I love this ship because it scales up really well for the average player. It's great in PvP, does fantastic in the Borg Solar Armada loop, grinds out the Borg probe, so it actually it works well outside of its own loop. It's actually quite nice in that regard. I'll say the Talios is everything I want a specialty ship to be. It's generally good as soon as you get it, though I will say if you're a player in the 30s, it does take till about tier 3, level 39, but that's true for every ship. If you get a faction ship, tier 1, that Enterprise sucks. But that's the nature of it because you need tiers to a ship to get the bonuses on the side for more hull health and officer abilities and things like that. That's just the nature of all ships are going to struggle at early tiers, not just specialty ships. So in terms of the Talios, it is a fantastic piece of equipment. We've also got the Titan A, which came out, which I'll admit was a little underwhelming. This is, of course, from Star Trek Picard. This would end up becoming the next Enterprise, by the way, little spoiler, my bad, but yeah, it's actually the Enterprise now. But anyway, if you haven't seen it, well, get mad at Rev for spoiling the Star Trek season 3 of Picard. Don't worry, you can go watch it on Paramount Plus. So this one is kind of a sneaky one because it's probably the easiest of any of them. Literally, you want to do your loop for the Titan? Let me show you how. Click on your Titan, click it outside your base, hit this button, presto dunno, and that is it. You have completed the Titan loop. Put it back home and then change it for something else. And then doing that lets you go to your support tab in your refinery and you're going to refine these things right here after you collect the daily, which obviously I didn't do before clicking on the refinery. It's the simplest of the ships. And I will say this, that gets forgotten about, but this ability right here, max fortification, is an absolutely incredibly powerful ability. One that I would recommend everybody go after. This is something that will help you punch up in Q's trials, solar armadas, territory capture. It's just really, really good. And it's obviously based on the research in the Titan tree or in the special ship tree. But again, it's simple. And that simplicity tends to make it get forgotten about just a little bit. And you have to go through the, long grind path to unlock it through the faction store. But at the same time, it does have value. Now get back in your home. Here's the USS Voyager. USS Voyager has always been a torn, I don't know. There's things I love about the Voyager. Number 1, warp range. The warp range on the Voyager is incredible, especially for a lower level player. It lets you get deeper out into space to do missions that you normally couldn't do. And if you remember, we even did a video about how using the USS Voyager, you can go do some late missions that get you free primes down the road. If you haven't seen that video, well, hit me up in Discord or Facebook and we can send you the link to it. Or maybe, if I remember, I'll link it at the end of this video. But the point is, I think it has great value, but for the most part, it's contained to its loop. Now, you can use its warp range to go do a deep armada, which is something I was doing during the Valentine's Day event here in February. I would actually take the Voyager, thanks to its warp range, and go all the way out here to a level 54 system, which is warp 285, just so I could launch those armadas and ask higher level players to carry me. Now, I couldn't get much credit for participating, but I would get credits for the starter chest. So now I have millions saved up. And technically, we could have gone on even further, where the furthest my warp range currently is a 55 system. That's a huge bonus to the average player who maybe is in an alliance that has 50s and 60s, but they don't, and they're in the late 30s or in the early 40s. This helps you get further out, and that has value. It also has the most complicated loop of all of the specialty ships that came out last year in 2023. You've got multiple hostile types, regular Hirogen, 8472, multiple nodes that you have to mine. It is a lot, to the point that a lot of people complain about the Voyager, even though it's valuable because it gives you a lot of ship parts, it has a great refinery, but it's so much work to do in the loop. But that's the nature of it. Then you had the Monaveen that came out, which is so underrated, but it's understandable as to why. Because when is this thing amazing? This thing is amazing when you are above level 50. Before that, it's okay. I will say that it introduced a new style of loop where you just passively grind, which is actually kind of neat. Literally, just go out here, not counting the field training, which you have to actively grind. Field training, literally, just come out here and sit it, just like this guy's doing. That's Iron Fister. We know him. He's a jerk. We actually really like Iron Fister. He sends me grippos and makes me fat. But that's it. It's a new style of loop, which a lot of players enjoy. Passive grinding and auto grinding. So you have that, as well as the Solar Armada part of it. And then it's really going to help with the very obnoxious cost of resources, the partial titanium to lithium, in the late stages of the game. And last but not least, the Borg Cube came out. And I'll admit, when the Cube came out, I was sold. I was excited. It's a Borg Cube. That's the synopsis. I really don't want to sound negative. I really am trying not to be negative, but I would say this has been a disappointment for me, which brings me to what I want to do in the survey. I'm going to grade the ships based on how I would grade last year's ships. Looking back, would I have buyer's remorse if I purchased one? Would I like them? Well, let's start with the Talios. I think the Talios is a great example of what a specialty ship should be in the game. It scales well, is useful for about 20 levels, and while it never is the best ship you have in the game, it does many things well. It feels great to have in your dock, and you don't ever feel like you need to just have it on the sideline. It's really good. Whereas the Titan A is a solid C, which is surprising maybe to some of you, but you got to remember the value of number one, simplicity. I love the fact that it's simple and easy to use. And number two, if you actually take the time to do the research, max fortification is really strong, y'all. It is really, really strong. The Voyager, to me, gets a solid B. I think the Voyager is fantastic because it helps you get ship parts. The commerce insignias are a free dolomite drip, and you can do those by the ship part method of hunting cubes out in Dairy Queen space. But again, it's overly complicated. It does too much, but it does have great things with it, like that extended warp range. So it's a solid B, while maybe not being amazing. The Monaveen is a split. Like if you are a high level player, like you're 55 plus, the Monaveen's got to be an A. I mean, you basically do nothing. It sits there and you grind it out and you get the resources you need to upgrade every day. If you're level 40, it's probably a C or a D because you're just sitting there going, well, it's there. Yay. That's kind of like the excitement level that you would have with it. I'm going to give it a solid B because I think that it does not apply to everybody being great, but it is something that you want to get and invest in long term. And they finally improved sourcing of it by adding it to 2-star territories, making it to where a lot more players in the game can go after it, which I think was a great move by Scopely. Thank you for listening to feedback, although it should have been like that the entire time either way. And then the Borg Cube, an F. I can, for nostalgia reasons, say a D. Honestly, that's about it. It is the biggest regret I have of 2023 is hyping this big behemoth. Do I like, as a Star Trek fan, that it's a Borg Cube? I love that it's a Borg Cube. Is it useful? No. It is a waste of space. It's a waste of my dock. It is terrible until you get to the very high 50s and 60s where it becomes the best PvP ship in the game. And that's it. It has decent research, but so what? You have tons of great research all over the place, and most of the research that this thing has is just copy pasta of other research that already existed in the game. What literal use do you have for the average player for a Borg Cube? None. If you're a Star Trek aficionado, a fan, a lover, a savant of Star Trek, yeah, it's amazing to have the artifact from Star Trek Picard, because that's what it is. It's the artifact. If you haven't watched Star Trek Picard, multiple spoilers in this video. Apologies. Sorry, not sorry. It's been out for a while. Don't really think it counts. But technological distinctness is a pain in the butt to grind. The fact that there's a tax on the cutting beam for going any level above you in PvE or PvP, waste of time. And while you do have high-level players, point on high-level players using it in wave defense, which is fine and fantastic, the average person has no reason to get this unless you just like a Borg Cube. It does nothing to improve your game, and you get it at level 28. And that's probably the most frustrating part, is it's like this really cool looking thing that's a big turd bucket. Have I made my opinion clear on how I feel about the Borg Cube? It's my biggest regret in terms of hyping something up in 2023 because it never lived up to it. Never once, which my Borg Cube, by the way, is maxed out for my tier. Never once has it been in my top 3 most powerful ships or top 3 most used ships. It gets brought out to do technological distinctness, to show off, and that's it. So there's my final gradings. Curious to see what y'all think in the comment section down below. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with those Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. These are the results we given directly to game design in about 48 to 72 hours because it was their idea that we do this poll. So if you want your feedback to count, fill it in and we'll compare notes afterwards. Appreciate every single one of you. You're all amazing. Catch you on the next one.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.